Well, I got my notes, check. Sunglasses, check. Hat, check. Pepsi, check. Thick skin, check. Let's go. Hey, welcome to Golden Blue Dude, everybody. If you're a college football fan, might as well hit the like and subscribe button because that's all we do over here. Go check out our Patreon page. We call our Patreons the shot callers because that's exactly what they do around here. And when the regular season gets here, our Patreons will get to decide which game we'll live stream, and you'll get to watch with Golden Blue Dude. And the score prediction contest will be coming back. Every week I pick out a game and my Patreons guess the score, and whoever comes closest to the score wins $20 every single week, and you can win as many times as you want. The higher the Patreon, the more guesses you get per week. First, let me address something real quick. So, for whatever reason, here recently, Golden Blue Dude has been labeled clickbait. I even looked it up, looked up the meaning, looked what it's referring to, and Golden Blue Dude indeed is not clickbait. The main purpose of clickbait is to get you to keep clicking. Not on just one particular video, but the next link to get more part of an answer, and then to the next, and then we've all done it. We've all been sucked into those quizzes and to those questions. See what happens next. You click to the next page and it gives you a little bit more information, but you got to keep clicking. Clickbait. But here recently, I've been labeled clickbait. Look, you know, if you can't keep up with Golden Blue Dude, that's not my problem. That's your problem, not mine. So you can label me whatever you want to label me. Use false facts, use terms, whatever definition you want to use them to, that's fine. But the bottom line is, Golden Blue Dude isn't clickbait. Yes, I form my own opinions, giving what I hear and what I look up. It's not an actual prediction. It's just giving you different outlets of what could happen. That's what I do here when it comes to conference realignment. That brings me to today's video. Most people think that the eventual future of college football is that the Big Ten and the SEC will get to their magical number and they're going to split off, create their own league, conference, division, whatever you want to call it, have their own governing body, have their own rules, and their own way of enforcing the rules. But there's phases that lead up to this, and I think the next phase is 3 mega conferences with 20 members. Did you hear what I just said? I think the next phase is, I didn't say the next phase is going to be this. I said I think the next phase is going to be 3 mega conferences with 20 members. Of course, the Big Ten and the SEC, they would be safe in this scenario. The Pac-12 is done and over with. They're going to die here soon. As far as being a Power 5 conference, they may get absorbed into the Mountain West and still exist as a conference, but they're not going to be a power conference anymore. And then the ACC and the Big 12 will duke it out for that last spot. In this particular scenario, I'm going to say that I think the Big 12 is going to win out between the Big 12 and the ACC. So here's what it would look like. For the Big 10, you already have current members: Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers, UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin. 16 members. So they are 4 shy of that 20-member mega conference. What 4 teams would the Big 10 most likely add? Well, with the ACC out of the picture in this particular scenario, I do think the Big Ten adds Notre Dame. Notre Dame would fit in the most in the Big Ten over the Big 12 and over the SEC. They fit in culturally, academically, and traditionally in the Big Ten. And if you bring in Notre Dame, you might as well bring in Stanford because they fit into the Big Ten as well. Not geographically, but neither does USC and UCLA. So they could fit in well with that little group out west. Stanford, USC, and UCLA, and Stanford and Notre Dame like each other a lot. They play each other every year, so that would be a good combo right there. 2 more openings, and I think it would be Oregon with AAU status, and I know, the Big Ten puts big-time emphasis on AAU status, but really it's not that big of a deal. And in fact, if you look up the Big Ten, they said the only university that they would make an exception for would be Notre Dame. So really, how much does that rule even matter? But Oregon and Washington are both AAU status. They're out on the West Coast, but the Big Ten has shown that geography doesn't matter. So they could also be in with the group with Stanford, USC, and UCLA. So your 4 additions would be Notre Dame, Stanford, Washington, and Oregon. I think those would be the biggest, best brands for the Big Ten, unless they turn their attention to the ACC. But in this scenario, I'm going to say that they keep their sights on the West Coast and pick up the 2 biggest brands, Washington and Oregon. The next conference is the Big 12. Remember, I'm saying Big 10, Big 12, and SEC. current members. Well, not really current members, but soon-to-be members, and not counting Oklahoma and Texas. Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, and West Virginia. That's just 12 members. So they have 8 open spots. So they have a lot to make up. So who does the Big 12 bring in? Well, I think the first 4, no-brainer. You bring in Utah, although I'm hearing that Utah does not want to join the Big 12. If it means to survive, then yes, they would join the Big 12. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State, they would fit in perfectly with the Midwest genre of the Big 12. But I think the Big 12 would need to balance it out by adding some teams on the east side of the conference to help out your West Virginias, your Cincinnatis, and your UCFs. And this is where the Big 12 can pick off from the ACC. Who would fit in well with the Big 12? Well, I think Louisville, Virginia, and I know Virginia is rumored to join the SEC, but in this scenario, I'm going to go with Virginia because of Virginia Tech. And then finally, the last spot between Pitt and NC State, and this just comes down to numbers. Which one would be the best fit for that last spot? So definitely Louisville. I mean, you'd have rivalries with West Virginia, Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, and if you bring in Pitt, they would have a rivalry with Pitt as well. Now, if you bring in NC State, they have decent rivalries with Louisville, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. So really, this is a win-win. But I do think Pitt would be the better pickup because of the backyard brawl. That would be your biggest moneymaker out of any of those rivalries that you bring in from the ACC. So the Big 12 would then add Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, Louisville, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and Pitt. Now on to the SEC. Current members counting Oklahoma and Texas. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. That's 16. So they only have 4 open spots to get to 20. Who fills those 4 spots? Well, the first one, easy. Clemson, biggest brand, making the most money out of the ACC, get Clemson. The next brand, also easy, North Carolina, the second highest revenue producing brand in the ACC, both football and basketball, must get for the SEC. The next brand, also a no-brainer, Florida State, another big-time brand. Yes, they have fallen on hard times when it comes to football, but they have a lot of tradition, a lot of money-making capabilities. I think you bring in Florida State to the SEC. And finally, Miami. A lot of people have Miami out, but I've seen interviews where Greg Sankey says he really likes that Miami TV market. He likes the recruiting advantages down there. So I think the SEC should bring in Miami. Now, whether they do or they don't, I'm not sure, but I think the SEC should bring in Miami. And Florida would be kicking and screaming over the Miami edition, but you just have to get over it. It would be for the overall best for the SEC to bring in Miami. So the SEC would be bringing in Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, and Miami. And all this would be corresponding to playoff expansion to either 8 teams, 12 teams, and yes, 16 teams. I'm hearing a lot of traction is being built up for the 16-team playoff expansion. I'm good with the 12 because I want the top 4 seeds to get a bye week. You want to keep that motivation going late into the season where conference championships still matter. So I like the 12-team expansion, giving the top 4 seeds a bye week and giving the first round home playoff spots and even the second round home playoff spots. So that means that there's going to be some teams without a Power 5 job. I'm looking at Washington State, Oregon State, and Cal out of the Pac-12. But like I mentioned earlier, the Pac-12 could actually merge with the Mountain West, but it would still lose Power 5 status. But that's still a decent conference for those 3 teams. I mean, they really don't do all that well in the Pac-12 anyways. Maybe it would be a step up for those 3 teams. Other teams that would be out of a Power 5 conference job would be Wake Forest, Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Duke, and NC State. There's 2 names in that group that really bother me not having a Power 5 conference job, and that's Syracuse and NC State. Syracuse has the #1 fan base in the ACC. They just don't support their football team enough. If you guys would support your football team enough and throw some more money at Syracuse, you would definitely actually be safe as far as getting to jump with the rest of the big dogs. And then there's NC State. Look, you guys were right on the edge between NC State and Pitt. I'm not saying you would be for sure out because you're a really good brand. No disrespect to my NC State subscribers. You guys are a really good brand, and I think you deserve to keep Power 5 status. It's just this came down to splitting hairs, and I like Pitt better because of the rivalries they keep intact. And maybe you could take the spot of another team that I have listed on here. So y'all let me know what you think about this. If there are 3 conferences that jump to 20 members and go to the mega conference status, besides the SEC and the Big Ten, do you think it's going to be the Big 12 or the ACC? And who would you have safe in these 3 20-member mega conferences? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.